It's an absolute honor to be here. And thank you, Hemant, for joining us. This is a very important topic that we are covering here. This is one of the oldest business problems that's existed, that of working capital, right? And accounts receivables and accounts payables and the circuitous connection between them, and how businesses have not managed to really solve this problem despite this having existed forever. Now, there are more than 60 million businesses in India today, big and small, and more than 50% of them have access to internet and digital in one way or another, right? Now, and the majority of their, number one problem, and Red Share has conducted these surveys time and again, the number one problem that most businesses quote tends to be working capital, right? Now, would love to know more about, because EnKash has a very unique take on solving the working capital problem, as opposed to credit. EnKash focuses on operational efficiency. Would love to know more about how EnKash has a very unique take on this problem statement.
I think, if you are talking about working capital challenges which typically any business face, before that, I think it is important that what is the root cause of the challenges, right? And why, typically such kind of challenges any business actually, come across. I think, if we are talking about any specific business, right, their focus is towards building or building up, control, transparency and visibility on the cash flows. And that is where, if you are talking about such challenge, it is only a reflective problem, which is actually being caused by inefficiencies and then essentially on the AP and AR side. And there are many challenges across that, right? I mean, if you look at any business, right, the challenge starts from the day, any business actually wants to onboard any vendor or buyer, right? The business has to, manually collect the KYC details and then subsequently do an entry into those accounting software or spreadsheets, and then subsequently, move towards, PO and invoice management, and essentially, there again, followed by a manual activity where, finance team has to, take approvals from various departments, and then subsequently it comes down to, entries when it comes to payment processing, right? Entries into accounting software and banking portal, right? And then there is a reporting and reconciliation. Essentially, if you are talking about this part, the major challenge which typically business face, and because of, these efficiency, whether, you are doing an AP or AR, essentially, someone's collection is someone's other businesses payable, right? Essentially, if there is an efficiency in the AP process, or if there is an inefficiency in collection process, ultimately it is going to impact DSO of the other business. And this is where, the challenge actually, comes across, where, people's money are actually, stuck in the entire value chain. It's not that, they are not having money, or, they are just waiting for that money to, come in. And essentially there, lies a problem statement, and there also lies a solution where, if the credit is actually being provided based on the transactions or cash flow, most of the challenges can be mitigated with respect to access to the capital. It's a short duration credit which any typical business will require to manage their day-to-day affairs. And that is where, EnKash also, plays an important role. As well, we'll move forward, I'll try to explain what EnKash does.
Sure, and that brings us to a very interesting point, right? So, for example, would love to know about why not credit, and why operational efficiency is a better solution for businesses compared to just taking a simple loan, where the majority of the current existing solutions operate.
As I said that, inefficiencies in one business system actually creates a ripple effect into the multiple other businesses. Essentially, what it leads to that, if there are challenges on the AR side processes, or if there are challenges on the AP side processes, ultimately someone's money is getting stuck in the value chain. And essentially, that is where, it is kind of, very, very important that, these kind of inefficiencies from the entire value chain has to be mitigated. While, credit would require as a reinvestment, but credit should not be required by businesses because of these inefficiencies. And essentially that is the point which is there, that, which EnKash as a platform is trying to mitigate, while, we intend to, solve both sides of the challenges for the business, right? Essentially, building efficient or building operational efficiency for the businesses on the AP and AR automation side, but at the same time, providing the right amount of credit or right access to the credit for the shorter duration, rather than, just waiting and, dipping into their working capital loans or, short-term loans.
Makes sense. So how does exactly the experience look like for at both ends, for the client as well as for the vendor?
Sorry, I didn't get this.
So for the customers, right, how does the user experience look like?
As far as the experience is concerned, I think, it's a platform approach. So essentially, we provide that kind of a software layer to the customer without disrupting their internal policies, processes, and systems. Where we seamlessly integrate our platform with their systems, right? And importantly, if you look at any kind of, mid-market, typically operates with 3-4 softwares, and one important piece of software is accounting. And the second piece of important piece is the banking portal. So essentially, EnKash actually, fits in between two. And then we actually, customize their workflows, essentially, what their existing processes are. We don't disrupt them. We don't disrupt their entire, we don't, go there and say that, boss, if you want to, build any kind of an experience layer, you have to have, leave aside your accounting software or a banking relationship. We don't intend to do that, and that is where, we come in between as a experience layer by providing our platform.
Very interesting. And which brings us to a very interesting point in terms of different kinds of customers that operate in the market, right? EnKash is geared towards mid-market players. How do their problem statements differ from players which are larger than them, for example, corporates, or very small players who, for example, may not be as digitally savvy?
So I think, when we are talking about challenges, and specifically, these challenges actually vary from segment to segment, right? And essentially, when we are talking about micro segment or a small segment, micros are, typically SMEs which are, working in the retail business. And we have seen kind of, innovations which are done in the Kirana tech side, which is again a massive opportunity, right? But essentially, typically these micro segment customers don't have any kind of a software layer with them, right? And that is where players like Neobank, who are serving to the micro segments, or players like, Kirana tech players, are actually trying to, build certain softwares for them. Whether they are successful or unsuccessful, I don't want to comment, but, there is a tectonic shift which has started happening there, right? Essentially, when we are talking about larger corporates, typically, they work with a couple of banks and where the technology is being provided. And typically, these large corporates also work with the ERP softwares, which are also deeply integrated there into their banking accounts as well as other processes as well. This is where, the mid-market specifically, if we talk about, right, the challenges are there, right? They are neither in the micro or small categories. They are typically having certain softwares, certain work processes work on spreadsheets. They use siloed software, some for vendor payments, some for expense management, some payment instrument for doing payment processing, some payment instrument for collections, and they are the ones who really require one stop solution essentially, or are an integrated layer amongst all their softwares, which can provide them holistic and 360-degree solution for their APA and AR side. And that is where we come into play, because ultimately, if you try and go to any of the such mid-market business and say that, boss, I am bringing to new software to you, or use my accounting software, or change your banking relation, they are not going to do that. And that is where we come into play, and we say that we don't want to disrupt anything. We'll just want to provide you an experience layer.
Makes sense. Now let's spend a few minutes talking about the EnKash product and the future growth. Right? What are the recent, because this seems to be the core solution. Of course, there will be various customers along the whole maturity chain with different levels of maturity. What are the different products which are currently on the roadmap, which have recently been launched or are in the pipeline?
Yeah, so EnKash has been pioneer in and category creator in spend management space, right? Now, if we are talking about spend management, most of the people are confused that it's just another expense management product, right? As I said that we intend to provide a 360-degree solution, which essentially means that we have taken a platform approach, and where we are consolidating AP, AR, and expense management by providing them the kind of experience layer they want alongside the softwares which they are missing. Then providing a compelling payment instrument such as corporate cards. And then subsequently the idea here is that the same one-stop platform approach will continue, where we intend to provide financial and non-financial products and services for the mid-market, which they typically lack in terms of accessibility. Even if they are accessible, or these products are accessible, typically they lack the experience layer, and that is where the entire roadmap is built up on, where we intend to be a one-stop platform for any business, and then they don't want to go out from our platform.
Very interesting. A few questions about your journey as an entrepreneur, right? I hope you don't mind that. Would love to know a few interesting anecdotes from your sales experience, or the whole journey of the origin story of EnKash, Hemant.
So origin story is actually hovers around consumer payments. I've been into payment space for more than 20 years, right? I've seen that space evolving. Essentially, we have seen that how consumer behaviors have changed, how digital payments have actually taken place as far as consumers are concerned. But there is not enough work that has been done on the B2B space side. And then by the way, this is again more than a $500 billion market opportunity on the conservative terms. And then this is where we came and we said that why not to disrupt the B2B payment space as well, and we provide similar kind of experience what consumers are actually getting, or individual like me is getting, right? And that is where we came into play. The idea actually came from that side only. And then very honestly, in last 4-5 years, we have started seeing a lot of players joining hands in terms of bringing innovative solutions on the B2B payment side. Going back on when we started our journey, I think the important point there was people were not aware of how this entire experience thing can pan out, right? And we have to, as I said, that we are category creators. We actually took a lot of challenges in terms of explaining what we intend to do. I mean, to the banks, to the market, to the customers, to the investors as well, right? And that is where over the period of time, now the people have started talking about that, this is the change which is required in the space. We feel good about it, right? That, we actually, brought out that thought in the market, and that is how, EnKash is actually doing.
No, I think this is great pioneering work, right? Whenever I talk to a founder of a category creator, their origin stories always come from very, very diverse and not really connected to the final end product.
Yeah, true.
As final conclusion remarks, right? Would love to know a bit more about the regulatory aspect of fintech, because in the last 1 year, there have been a number of interventions which have come out, right? And as a founder, right, you need to be very technically aware about before you step into this space. What's your experience with this?
I think, fintech is the toughest space as far as startup ecosystem is concerned, right? And why it is actually, toughest, the reason is that, there is a money which is involved, right? And essentially, if we are talking about fintech as a space, my only limited suggestion is that, you need to, the most important skill which is required is the subject matter expertise. Either you have or your team should have it, right? Essentially, focus is always on understanding regulations, compliances, and risk management. Either, you should able to do it, or, your team should know it in and out, right? And then, we have seen in recent past, right, how companies have actually, gone down or pivoted their business model, right? The reason was simple that, some of the companies actually didn't understand that what are the typical concerns that regulator is having, right, around, customer data, customer privacy, customer pricing and all. So my only limited point here is that, for any fintech founder or, to us as well, let's be on the right side of the compliance, not play with any of the pieces where there is a risk to the customer or there is a concern to the customer, right? That is where, I think everyone should be, working, and that is where regulator is also, focused on. I think, we should be proud that our regulator is the most agile and futuristic. And then essentially, if you are talking about the regulator, they are actually, come out with a lot of policies and processes to clarify that, what is right and what is, incorrect side of the space, right? And I think, regulator will keep on coming up with other policies and processes as well, because ultimately, this ecosystem has to be strengthened. But having said so, I think, fintechs are the real innovators as far as these ecosystems are concerned, right? And fintechs require that kind of a framework. I think the only request to the regulator would always be that, provide fintechs a necessary framework, necessary, if require any kind of license, please provide it to them. There are many spaces where, licenses could be, could play a good role. That is where, if you just take an analogy from NBFC side, right, and essentially, regulator provided that kind of a framework to NBFCs, and they actually, did very well in the ecosystem. Similarly, fintechs are also on the right side, and then regulator can provide that kind of a framework to the fintechs.
No, fantastic. Let's hope that the regulators keep up their activity and good work.